Well, I think, unfortunately, Stephen Harper prorogued Parliament twice now, and what has happened as a result is I'm afraid that we get inured very quickly to this sort of thing, so that making it worse is that Dalton McGuinty prorogued in Ontario. So I don't know how many of you knew that. When Dalton McGuinty announced he was stepping down in a minority situation, he shut down the Ontario legislature at the same time. So now, most voters would think, well, it's obviously not illegal. It's something premiers and prime ministers do. So it's, I think there's simmering anger over many issues, robocalls and the offenses towards Parliament, contempt, pushing through every piece of legislation that's been introduced, well, I shouldn't say every piece. The Military Justice Act, they didn't shut down debate, but every important piece of legislation since I've been a member of Parliament has had time allocation, debates have been limited, and bills have been pushed through quickly. And then they complain just the same as Peter Van Loan did in asking for my amendments to be disallowed, that somehow the process of passing bills is too slow. I mean, they're governing, it's essentially governed by Thunderbolt. They just, you know, and with so many different components to omnibus bills, you can never study them properly. I mean, that's another piece of the omnibus bills that gave rise to, I don't know more, was changing the voting process between First Nations communities for leasing land. And if that was a bill that was an okay bill, we'd know much more about it if we actually had it as a standalone piece of legislation. So I think there's simmering anger, but the prorogation piece may just have gotten too contaminated now by McGuinty doing the same thing. Yeah?
Technically, doesn't the Governor-General have the power to refuse that request?
Yes, the Governor-General has the power to refuse prorogation. And I think that Michael Jean probably, well, I wish he had done so. A piece of the puzzle that many people don't know is, well, I'm reliably informed, you know, that when the Governor-General makes decisions, he or she has a host of constitutional law experts who are there to give good advice. And unfortunately, at least in 2008, when Stéphane Dion, Jack Layton, and Gilles Duceppe, and I was in the mix too, discussing the coalition government, Jack Layton and Stéphane Dion thought they had enough time to postpone the vote for a week. And in the process, and this is actually something that Gilles Duceppe and I both told them they shouldn't do. We said, got to bring them down tomorrow on the speech from the throne vote. And they just said, oh, that's just procedural. Well, the speech from the throne vote is actually a confidence motion. So the advice that Michael Jean got was, you can't refuse his request for prorogation because a week ago he passed a confidence vote. So it's not possible to say he didn't have the confidence of the House when that happened. So a strategic error of large proportions. The second time, he just phoned her. Now, I don't know why she approved prorogation the second time, because but again, the problem with someone like Stephen Harper and Westminster parliamentary democracy in Canada is that virtually all of the things within our system of government that constrain the raw exercise of ruthless power come down to respect for traditions. So there's no law that says you can't do certain things that are quite outrageous, like proroguing the House, like politicizing the committees, like telling the Parliament that they can't have documents that we're entitled to have. We go to the Speaker of the House, and that's the ultimate arbiter. And as I said, other than that ruling about my amendments, there hasn't been much from the Speaker that differed from the opinion of the government, not the government, because I'm part of the government, but differed from the opinion of the Privy Councillors, Stephen Harper and Cabinet. So.